This is the AdTech panel. With AdTech, everything immediately becomes measurable, and for the sake of argument, let's assume that's a good thing. So the tech stack becomes a construct or a platform facilitating measurement and tracking, classifying, and characterizing marketing, advertising stimulus, and increasingly response in real time, leading to an ability to modify implementation in near real time. So AdTech really is where the rubber hits the road with respect to attribution. In fact, it is the road. So I will tell you that the best education that I had about attribution in the last 12 to 18 months came on the prep call for this panel when everybody talked about what they do for a living. So I wanted to bring that into the room. So I thought that the best way to introduce the panelists and start the session would be to ask everybody to sort of go down the line and talk about the work that you do, brief summary of your work, and what do you do to link attribution to activation. And I'll also say, feel free, but it's not mandatory, to define either attribution, activation, or both. But just tell us what you do and why it's interesting. We all sang our college fight song before the panel started.
I remember it to save my life. Never learned it when I was there.
All right, you get a pass. Pete.
My mascot gave up biological warfare, so I never learned it for that reason.
Pete, why don't you start? Tell us about the work you're doing in attribution.
Okay, moving swiftly on from biological warfare. Hi, everybody. My name's Pete Doe. I've been at Clipped for about a year now. Prior to that, I was at Nielsen for about 11 or 12 years, where I was working on advanced audience data sets. So what does Clipped do? Clipped is in the AdTech space, but unlike what I think most people think of when they think of AdTech, we're not working directly in the digital space. We would set up for TV, linear TV, and that's where our focus is currently. Doing a bit of VOD as well. But the idea of Clipped is to enable advanced audiences to be bought and sold on TV, so going beyond age and gender. And we work primarily on the sell side, so we have clients like Discovery and Fox and Viacom and ESPN and so on. And the movement away from age and gender to advanced audiences is something that's very exciting, very challenging, and it does, of course, raise questions about attribution. So what does attribution mean to me? I suppose effectiveness. And then I suppose, what does effectiveness mean to me? Well, it depends what your objectives are. And I think what we're seeing is a move away from short-termism in terms of effectiveness to more of the brand fundamentals of awareness and just brand building. And linear TV is obviously in a very good position to do that. Have I covered all the bases now? I probably have I
think you have.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. I'll pass it on then.
Yeah, thanks. Good morning. Sorry, Alex LePage from Rubicon Project. So Rubicon Project is essentially the largest independent ad marketplace, second largest to Google. And what that really means is we started out as an SSP, that's a supply side platform, built the marketplace in the middle, connect with all the major demand side platforms, the trade desks, the agency, holding companies and brands direct, and operate at the very fundamental level an auction, just like that happens in search, all the way up to private marketplaces and actually products that allow you to buy directly across publishers. And one of the reasons that we obviously feel attribution and accountability is really important is in sitting in the middle. We see and want to really solve for, and we heard about sort of people-based marketing earlier. We have the ability, you mentioned it, Josh, to now identify individuals very discreetly. But I think that given, and we're going to talk about this, the mass of different technologies, different partners, the lack of ability in a lot of cases to identify individuals across mobile, which is where increasingly most of the time is spent. We are trying to solve for first the accountability, and secondly then the attribution to make sure that we can make marketing better and we can really achieve that nirvana where we find audiences. I'm privileged to be sitting in the middle of two of the sort of linear television players. One of the things that we are also building upon is bringing out of home, bringing OTT into this platform so that this isn't just a digital, but just isn't just the mobile devices and the desktop as we knew it, but we're able to actually create a marketplace where hopefully in the future all advertising that wants to be traded can be done so in real time.
Hi, my name is Praveen Chandiramani. I'm with Samel Media. Samel Media is a company that's around 8 years old. What we are is we're a media activation platform for performance advertisers on linear television. What that means is we work with large TV advertisers, take their linear television budgets and try to make it more performant, which is improve things like return on investment, cost per action. So we make TV in essence more like digital from the perspective of an advertiser. For us, we like to think, given an ad tech, there's a lot of overlaps in terms of and definitions. We like to think we are focused on media activation, which to us means planning for a budget on linear TV and actually executing the plan. Insofar as attribution is concerned, we think of attribution as sort of the performance invoice for the plan on television. So it tells you, in fact, whether your plan worked from a performance level. And we contribute to that system insofar as our platform has set-top box data linked at the household level to things like sales or downloads, and we contribute that data to companies who are actually doing the attribution.
Taylor?
So I'm Taylor Schreiner. I work at TubeMogul, where I run research. Briefly, TubeMogul is an independent software platform for buying programmatically everything from television, so programmatic linear television, digital out of home, online digital video, display, pretty much all of your branding outlets into social that you might buy through software. And again, trying to be brief, our big differentiator in our mind is that we are independent, so we don't own any inventory, we don't have any preferential reason to buy or sell inventory, so we're very, very focused on the advertiser needs. And that's really what drives me and our thinking about attribution. So for instance, we don't have attribution products, we don't really build those products, but I've been in this business for over a decade, Yahoo and LinkedIn and Twitter and now here. And I've always been focused on experimentation and experimental design. And that's one of the things that we've really driven at Tube. We have a product that addresses a lot of the issues that the earlier Viant presentation addressed, and we can talk a little bit about the differences offline. But we're really interested in making sure, when it comes to attribution, that however you define it, that we are able to provide some ground truths so that you know that what you're doing makes sense. We don't think we're going to provide the solution, but we hope that we can provide a space where you can compare solutions and talk about which one works best for you.
Okay, great. So right now, where's the hype and where are the holes in attribution?
Starting over here.
It's a toss-up.
Sure.
It's a toss-up.
Well, so I started talking, so when I dive in, and the hype, it always reminds me of have you guys seen the Uber cars in Pittsburgh? I mean, I think that, if you look at, everybody got excited about these cars that drive all over Pittsburgh, they're going to drive themselves. That's the hype. But the reality is they're unable to sort of pass a car that's parking. There's a lot of places they can't go through. And what they do is absolutely amazing. It's just that everyone has sort of jumped to the end state and thought about what is this going to really be like. And there's been a lot of value with the internet boom and thinking about what the end state of a company is, and that's great. but we really haven't focused on what's available right now. And I think the hype is I'm going to pump in my data and I'm going to pump out ROI, and that's just not going to happen. And the good news about that is it means we all have jobs because we're all going to have to apply judgment, and we're all going to have to think about why we're doing what we're doing, and we're going to lean more and more on the software, and our judgment's going to be more and more influenced by that, but it's not going to be dependent on that alone. The holes are myriad. I will leave, there'll be plenty of time for other folks to talk about holes, but TV is always going to be a hole because of the addressability question. But even fundamentally in the area where there is a ton of data, the big hole for me is that we have not communicated as an industry to the marketing executives how to make decisions about what models to use. And I was at a conference yesterday, I was talking about this. If anybody was on the Upshot page of the New York Times following into this election, there were 9 different polling models. And I'm reasonably educated on this stuff. I couldn't tell you the difference between how those models were supposed to work. And I think we're in a very, very similar situation right now with attribution, where there's a lot of really good stuff, there's a lot of really good terminology being thrown around, but there's no good communication as to how someone ought to make a decision about what model to use.
So I'll just add on what he said. I really liked what he said about about the end state. We see that a lot. Clients and the hype around imagines the end state and they want it now, whereas their organizations aren't ready to receive it. So they're just structural and organizational barriers insofar. And an example of that is, my view is very parochial, so it's limited to linear TV. There's this view that linear TV attribution is going to be real time, very much as it's in digital, and everyone wants it. I want it too, but the way linear TV is historically measured and attributed, that takes typically a lot of time. You work with companies who refresh their models today once every 6 months, so there's no real time. It's not going to happen because these companies who are doing independent attribution are working with clients today to improve those models, but insofar as the industry exists today, you may even have the data to do real time, but you aren't going to actually get a real time result. And to our discussions earlier, that even if you had a real time result, you really couldn't do anything with that data because you really can't actually optimize TV today on real time. So so the end state is real time attribution with leading to real time optimization, but to your earlier point, industry is still far from it. I would refute the point on TV. I think there is a lot of data on TV. I think the structure, back to what you said earlier, the structural, there are a lot of structural limitations that prevent that data from actually coming out and being used in an effective way.
Yeah. Just briefly, I think that one of the big gaps or one of the big holes is as digital and programmatic and their share of total spend becomes something that is meaningful, the MMM, the traditional media mix models are very good for this the large spends, large directional spend. I think somebody mentioned it earlier, the econometric models. We're doing really, really fine, precise, and some players in the digital space, as you know, are able to target, and especially in the direct response, doing things and doing very sophisticated testing controls, and that gap is really between these two now. So we've got this very large, and as sort of the predominance of digital and the ability to use data grows, I think that what we have to do is find sort of this marriage between the two, the attribution models versus the larger, somewhat slower media mix.
Yeah, it's definitely two types of model, aren't there? And we heard that earlier. And when I was at Nielsen, there was a lot of talk about doing multi-touch attribution across linear TV and other, as many touch points as you can get. And I think it is still just talk. I don't really see too much of going beyond that. And earlier, people on this stage were saying that they think of it for digital, and so that to me is very interesting. even if you did have all that data on TV, I think there is a gap, and everybody's talking about people-based marketing and so on. If you got 3 people watching TV, how do you know who's watching? And that was neatly avoided in the previous discussion I noted. So, and that brings you to the correlation, not the cause. So I think all those things are sort of neatly swept under the carpet in this shiny new world. But even in the old world, I'd say market mix models worry me. I'm trying to be controversial here, by the way, because Jim asked me to be.
Jim said, yeah.
but I've genuinely held this view for many years. But I think market mix models, which originated really more on the sort of buy side of the business, to use a Nielsen terminology, buy versus watch, those models were created by very smart people who understood the consumer side really well, but actually didn't really understand the media side very well. And so they just thought, well, what media data do we have? Oh, we've got some GRPs, shove them in. And not really thinking about, well, what does that mean? And what about reach? And what about GRPs that actually were for a particular target group? All that stuff has not really been addressed even today. And I know that the Council of Research Excellence has done some really good work around that and continues to do so. But I do worry that for the last 20 years, media has been undervalued in market mix models. It's very difficult to undo that, of course, and nobody wants to completely reconstruct that. But I do wonder if market mix models had originated on the media side rather than the consumer side, where the budgets would be what they are now.
Yeah.
Can I throw one more sentence of a whole? Nobody mentioned. We don't talk enough about creative and its value.
Yeah, it's true.
I will tell you, I don't know if I'm allowed to have a comment as a moderator, but I will tell you that at ComScore, there was a period of time when we owned the company ARS, which did a lot of copy testing, and so we knew from that creative execution was, I think, 4 times as impactful as media selection in driving results.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
And none of these models think about that, or they think that's not true. These things are thought about separately, and they need to be thought about together.
Well, I think with the digital attribution models, you can be testing different creatives. So I mean that's definitely a positive there. But what you're missing, of course, is all the other influential factors that may not actually be related to creative. So.
But it's usually the last one, right? It's like, oh, and what about creative?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that if you had, and I know there's really no such a thing, but a bad ad, the more you showed it, the worse you were going to do. I mean, presumably that would be an issue. So, all right. So, given that there are obviously gaps, we know there are gaps. How do we take the next step on the journey? Do we have to be perfect for this to make sense, or is demonstrably better, measurably better, good enough?
We go with, we keep saying don't let perfect get in the way of better internally. Always been our mantra. So I'm with, keep moving it, because again, to an earlier conversation, that, sort of the battlefront has there are multiple fronts on this battle. There are only 2 or 3 or 1 that, most companies can afford to fight. So try moving that front along. In our case, that is getting enough data to bridge the gap between households and individuals, getting enough data to bridge the gap, deterministic data to bridge the gap between households to reach to actual sales, right? And we'll leave it to other companies to solve, companies like Clip to solve the real-time issues around ad insertion and so on. But yeah, I think that's the only way you'll get progress, because if you're waiting for end state, as you said, you won't have business for 10 years, and then by that time the world will have moved on.
Well, you point out, it is better is definitely the standard. The thing we never talk about is better than what. I think there's a definite data paralysis problem in the industry. Like, nobody wants to act unless they've seen data. I really would encourage people to go around their company and say, look, just tell me before we run this attribution model, this MMA, what do you think works? What do you think is actually effective? And then look at the model that you're choosing and saying, is this better than the brains we've got in this space, and is it worth the $100,000 we're spending to be that much better? And that should be the standard as opposed to, did we precisely accurately predict sales?
I mean, I think you always have to operate on what works and what's good, not perfect. And if you want perfect, then go to academia, because anybody who works with data in this business knows what a messy business it is. And it would be great to get some academics in here. They would have heart attacks, I think. Even at the gold standard Nielsen data, that's as good as anybody could possibly do, in my view. And I can say that now. I'm independent of Nielsen, and I still hold that view. But if you were an academic, 50% don't even take part in this? What? It would just be it would be a real shock to those people. So you obviously have to work on what the good, not the perfect. I think that also then raises questions like, well, what is good enough? And there are so many different data sources out there that can make your business better. And they may not be the gold standard in terms of currency measurement, but if they make your business better, then and you can demonstrate that, then use it. The only thing I would say about that, though, is you kind of keep having to check that. So if you have a data set that 1 year is based on a certain set of penetration of TVs in the market, and then next year there are more TVs, well, it's probably going to be better, but it might not be. It might be worse for some obscure reason. And you also have to accept that you're probably not going to cover everything, and you need to think about what you're not covering. If you think about Canoe, a few years ago that was set up, that was trying to address that as well as it could, but it still couldn't address everything because there are a lot of Hispanic consumers watching over-the-air TV. And if you think about data, credit card purchase data, they probably weren't using credit cards much either. So does that mean to say that you should never use set-top box data and credit card purchase data? No, it doesn't, but you should be aware of the limitations of what you've got, and bear in mind that the result you get this year isn't necessarily going to be the same next year, unlike a more sort of statistically pure design that should be consistent year on year, and the changes you see are real.
Yeah, I want to pick up on a point that Taylor made. When I worked at Arbitron in the 80s, we used the term data as a disparagement, right? We called stuff just data, right? We looked at our goal as to turn data into information into insight, and then ultimately action could be taken based on the insight. But now we are lousy with data. What I often say is you can't swing a dead cat with creating more data, especially if the cat's wearing a Fitbit. So the question I have, it's a two-part question. Where does insight come into play? And now, because you mentioned, what do you think works? Where does insight come into play nowadays that we have all this data? How do you go from data to insight? And do we need insight anymore? Or do we just let the algorithms run and not worry about insight and just let the data drive the next response?
So I think that the answer is somewhat ambiguous, but that's terrible. Sorry about that. The thing I'll go back to, something that's a little bit more well-defined, and we run into the same problem. We think about planning across multiple screens. We have an algorithm that tells you how to do that in our company. One of the challenges is when you look at that data, it's telling you where to go to reach people. It may not mesh with your intuition. And so what we're going through, I think, in this world is the same space of saying, what are the parts where I'm learning from the algorithm something I did not anticipate, and what are the parts where I'm saying no? Right. And I think that I always called the guardrails in this space the duh and the like, yes, of course I was going to be there. That's the duh guardrail. And then you're like, I'm never going to be on that network at that time. That's the That's just not true. And as long as you're in between the duh and the you've got a good algorithm you can learn from.
I'm glad I asked.
So I think this is I view insights as as a more sort of open field as opposed to what an algorithm does. An algorithm does one thing, does it well. And there can be disadvantages of it because it's sometimes they don't. I'm making the people. It's bizarre. Ignore that. But algorithms or their designers don't make them in a way, at least today, or they're biased to sort of do the same thing and then get better at it. As you see, look, if anyone saw your Facebook feed during the elections, depending on your political proclivities, it was dominated by one party or the other, right? That's the algorithm working, right? You don't get to see the outside viewpoint. I feel the role of insights is when you have a set of information which is presented to humans, and you can actually then look at, you can get a perspective which is different from what the machine is doing on a regular basis. So I still feel there's a big role for insights because it will help us actually design better algorithms to actually incorporate all those things into it.
So let me, if I may, this is a great panel of experts, and we've only got a little bit of time left, so I really want to open it up to you guys. Take questions from the audience, and the ladies with the mic ready? So this guy has the benefit of being right in front of me. Is that Rick? No. Sorry, this lady. I'm blind.
I've heard a lot of, in the discussions and the presentation so far, it's been very much from a brand perspective of, I have this brand and I want to figure out how to maximize whatever. But I'm not hearing enough about publishers. Yeah. And what publishers can be doing proactively, and especially in a situation where it is not in an advertiser's interest to necessarily give us access to data to prove that said publishing platform works or should be charged, or they should be charged more for it. So I guess at what point will we get to talking more about what publishers can be doing proactively, can be doing for customers that are not terribly sophisticated, don't have, large data sets and stacks and, whatever terminology we want to put in, and are skeptical, questioning, and don't want to spend more money, ultimately, and will not give you the ammo to either do that. So I open this up to whoever could help answer that question.
Yeah, I can start. So we operate a marketplace that's very much works for the publisher as well as the buy side and are independent, and so don't own any media and compete with the publishers. So hopefully you think this is unbiased. I think that there's what we would call in the digital space is a supply side partner. We, I think, are working towards supplying insights to the publisher just the same way as to the marketer on the dynamics of the auction, how and when you set price floors, where you use your sales force to go and sell directly versus via programmatic, right? How brands are actually thinking about the shift towards hopefully using more audience data and more precise data to buy on your behalf. But I think that and I'm assuming you would echo this. The publishers and the communities that serve you, we have to do a better job representing what is that audience made up of? What are the unique assets of the publisher? And how you access that within the different sort of models of buying, and for you, how you essentially maximize the value for that audience, how you can work across publishers, essentially to perhaps combat some of what's happening in the walled gardens, and take back some of that control. Does that answer your question? A bit?
From our perspective, we operate an ad network, which is powered by information and data. Our perspective is, the publishers, in our case, these are media networks on television. They would not work with us if we were in fact using this information to somehow out arbitrage them and drive the cost of their media to sort of to the lowest point. Now in TV, that's slightly different because it's a supply side constraint market. There's more money than the media available. It's different on the digital side where the supply is vast. I think the answer there, I can't speak to digital because not in that space. But I think the answer there is very much like on TV, is the one who makes the best content wins, because ultimately what information does is it creates this homogeneous layer. Like you can evaluate any piece of media by using a set of data, but the content they produce is still very differentiated. That's why they got into the business in the first place, right? So you see this in TV too. The media owners who sell on the basis of their content, as in the show, the stars in the show, still command the highest price. You've got the data-driven media. It's towards the middle end of the pricing spectrum. So I think publishers and media owners in general would do well to focus on their core, which is producing awesome content. Money will follow that. They're not data scientists. They're producers of content.
Yeah,
But I'd also add, though, that I think with linear TV, you're absolutely right about the supply-demand difference compared with digital. I think linear TV has been really well understood for many years. It's been around for many years, and there's been a lot of data to help buyers and sellers of linear TV understand what performs well for what groups and so on. But what we're seeing in the last few years is people actually beginning to buy and sell on that, rather than doing all that good planning information and then saying, it goes down to the buying floor, and then they'll say, well, that's women 25 to 54, isn't it? and off they go and buy women 25 to 54. So actually being able to activate on these more advanced targets is good for both buyer and seller, because it just makes the whole process more efficient, and that has to be a good thing.
There's an important caveat there, Pete, which I'm going to add. So there is an issue here, which is media inventory ends up priced based on cost per thousand against target demography, age and gender, right? So if there's a price here for women 25 to 54, but in fact it becomes a great chunk of inventory for someone selling foreign cars to that age gender cell, but a lousy chunk of inventory for somebody selling, let's say, toilet paper to that same age cell, that inventory is worth more to the one than the other, right? So there is a little bit of arbitrage going on, in the sense that the advertisers are maybe investing in more data about audiences, and especially in advanced audiences. And the problem I think that publishers have right now is that media is being transacted in the old way, which is cost per thousand against age, gender, but valued by the buyers in terms of advanced targeting. So my advice to publishers across media is to know as much as you can know about the various attributes of your audience. Because if somebody is coming shopping for women 25 to 54, but they're really shopping for foreign car auto intenders, you'd best know that. And the more information you have about what's really resonant among your audience, is the better job you can do of selling the value of it.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I mean, I'll let somebody. Jim, are we done? Can we take another question?
I have another question. Hi.
Well, if you have the mic, you get to ask a question.
Last question? Excellent. I'm going to challenge you guys on how comfortable you were saying that perfection should not be the enemy of good and getting stuff done, okay? And the reason I want to challenge that is because the recommendations that come out of these imperfect systems are pretty strong, and they're pretty firm, and agencies pretty much have to abide by them. In the old days, I thought that the books should show data based on the solidity of the data, how solid the sample size is, and it would either be really gray and you kind of couldn't even see it, or it would be bold and black so you could see it. There is no variation in the responses that come out of these attribution systems. No one says, I'm kind of okay with this, I'm sort of okay with this, you might consider doing it this. It's like, here you go, here's what you're buying, here's your media winners and losers, here's your tactics based on these models. So how do you react to that? I mean, to me, it's just huge, the gap between the solidness of the implications and the vagaries of the systems.
Well, I think what I was saying is you have to assess the effectiveness. After you've done all that and you've trusted it, if it doesn't work, you'll find out. And if it works for 1 year, it doesn't necessarily mean to say it's going to work for the following year. So you clearly can't, as I said, you can't expect perfection in this industry, in this world, probably. That's quite philosophical, isn't it? So you obviously have to be informed, and you shouldn't just trust a number that's given to you. you should try and understand where it comes from. And if you don't have the ability to understand it yourself, find somebody on your side who does. So of course you need to do all the due diligence. I think kind of went without saying, but that's why you're picking us up on it, because we didn't talk about that.
Well, I think you hit on there are two layers here. One is, like, I'm just going to say nice things about ComScore here because we have Josh. One thing that ComScore does really, really well, for those of you who've been in media metrics, is you've got like a red light, a green light, and a yellow light, right? Like, that just tells you how confident they are in their sample. That's wonderful. That's the level at which we should be having this conversation. The rest of us who've got a little stats background or a lot stats background can sort of dig into it. But Pete gets to the more important point, and the one that we have to keep reinforcing, that people sort of conflate statistical metrics with real life confidence. So what we were talking about in some of the framing problem, like the question is, so among the data that you've got, how confident are you? And then methodologically, did you actually, how confident are you that the person who pulled this together is useful, and on the other end of that, or did the right work? And on the other end of that, how confident are you that given all those things, this is going to be useful data? And those, the middle bit is education, the outer two bits are judgment, and you're never going to get away from those outer two bits.
Yeah, I'd only add to this, focus on an independent view, ideally, from a practical perspective, get an independent view of whether it's working or not, and that way you can be assured that that independence is coming from your bias as opposed to the vendors.
So what do you say to media that get booted off the plan because of these models? $10 million 1 year is gone because it didn't.
We are that media sometimes. And that actually motivated a lot. So coming in this video and looking at a lot of these attribution models, we said, look, we're stuck in a position where we can't address or refute the black box that someone has imported. And that's why we built our experimentation platform. And I think, frankly, you kind of have to, as any provider of media, be it a DSP or a publisher, some way of saying, look, you're never going to measure all of your media experimentally. It's generally too costly, and at the very least, it's too costly in terms of the opportunities that you're missing. But you ought to, as a publisher or someone like us, provide the opportunity for someone who's kicking you off the plan or even wanting to double you on the other side to say, look, is this right? Can we run a real experiment to just check this one point and make sure that what we're getting is the truth? And if it's not exactly right, then you should have vendors of attribution who are able to take that, not fight that data, but take that data in and say, okay, that's interesting, that's a new data point we didn't have before, let's recalibrate and try to adjust on that basis.
Okay. Another question? And back to Jim. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I'm not sure he's done that.